Welcome to the Dogs Podcast with your hosts, Blake Reneker, Justin Charles, and Josh All.
Hey, what's up, Browns fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Dogs Podcast. Josh All, your host today. Happy Tuesday. I hope everybody's week started off well. Hope it started off better than the Steelers' week started off. The one and done first round exit, Pittsburgh Steelers back at it again. That is now 5 straight playoff games that the Steelers have lost by double digits. And I believe that is the most or the longest streak of that kind in NFL history. From what I saw this morning, the stats, they're 0-7 in their last 7 playoff games. And just to give you guys another interesting stat that if you got Steelers fans that are friends or family, whatever, give them this one. Give them this one. The Pittsburgh Steelers' last playoff win was January 15th, 2017. That is 3,285 days ago. The Cleveland Browns, on the other hand, last playoff win for the Brownies, January 10th, 2021, just a short 1,829 days ago. So, the streak lives on. The Browns still have the more recent playoff win and also the more recent playoff win in Pittsburgh than the Steelers do. So there you go. Gotta love it. Gotta shove it into Steelers fans' face because, hey, what's a rivalry for if we're not going to kick them while they're down? And people will be like, well, you're the Browns. We'll kick you when you're... We're always down. You can't kick us when we're down. We're always down. We're used to it. No, I'm just messing around. Actually, the Browns, the situation with the Browns, we got some voicemails to play here today. We're going to dive into that, your thoughts and opinions. But there's a voicemail in here I'm going to play today where the outlook for the Browns' future, really, it's not all doom and gloom. I know we as Browns fans can tend to doom and gloom it, maybe a little more exaggerated than it needs to be. But at the same time, it's been decades and decades of suckage and losing and just this turmoil that we've experienced over and over again. So I get it. I fall victim to it. You guys know, you watch the show. I do it all the time. I boo-hoo, the Browns suck. But you know what? We do have positive things to talk about. I'm going to update you guys on the head coaching situation right now. All the candidates, all the interviews, everything, all the news, updates, everything that's going on with the head coaching search for the Browns. And then dive into your voicemails and all that stuff. There's a couple candidates that I'm really excited about, to be honest with you guys. I'm going to get into those two a little deeper when we get to that point. You guys let me know, as always, in the comments what you think as we go along. I'll just tell you now, we're planning to try to do some sort of live show on YouTube. We used to do the post-game reaction shows live every Sunday night after the game. And now that it's the off season, the schedule varies a little bit when we're going to do our episodes based on the news cycle and all that kind of stuff. So at some point this week, we are going to do a YouTube live show, and Blake's got a very different opinion and approach to the head coaching search than I do. And I'll touch on that a little bit, again, when we get there. If you guys want to be part of these episodes, you want to get your voicemails on the show, your thoughts and opinions like I'm going to play today, go to thedogspodcast.com, tap leave voicemail in the drop-down menu, or you can just type in a message, send it to the website, and I can read it on the show for you guys that way. And if you want to be part of the Dog Pack community, get in on the Discord Dog Pack live episodes like we just did on Sunday, which was awesome. Hearing from everybody, talking to everybody, hanging out like that. That is at jointhedogs.com. Become an official Dog Pack member on the Patreon page. It's a great way to support the show. Even if you don't want to be part of the Discord, you don't really care about that part or all that kind of stuff, you don't have to. But just joining our Patreon, signing up for that membership each month really does help out the show, helps support us financially. We're an independent podcast. We do all this ourselves, and we plan to continue that way because I don't want anybody telling me what I can or cannot say about the Cleveland Browns, kind of like our media, which we got some voicemails about that too today. So we'll dive in there. But if you want to hang out with all the diehard Browns fans in that community, it's jointhedogs.com. All right, real quick, let's recap what happened on Wild Card Weekend. So Saturday was a doozy. The whole NFL playoff postseason started off with the Rams going to Carolina to play the team that everybody said shouldn't even be there. The 8-9 Carolina Panthers. Why is this team with a sub-500 record first of all, why are they in the playoffs? Second of all, why are they hosting a playoff game? It should not be the division winners always get to host a playoff game. It should go by record, yada, yada, yada. Panthers don't deserve to be here. The Rams jump out to an early 14-0 lead. It looked like, whoa, the route is on. Panthers damn near won that game. The Carolina Panthers fought, man. They were tough. I was blown away. I was impressed with the Panthers. I thought, wow, they're actually going to do this. They're going to ruin all my parlays, all my bets, everything that I put down on Kalshi for the Rams to win this game because I thought there was no way they were going to lose. I'm screwed. But the Rams did win at the last, I think it was in the last minute, the touchdown pass to Colby Parkinson. Whew, what a catch. What a freaking catch. That's why the NFL is so fun, man. There's plays and then there's players. And man, that was a player making a play right there. So then the night game, the Green Bay Packers go to Chicago, face the Bears, had the lead. Look like Chicago probably not going to be able to come back and win this one, or all right, good first season for Ben Johnson. Everything looked great. Come back stronger next year. Nope, they came back and they win that game. So the Bears move on. Packers go home. We got some questions about Matt LaFleur, their head coach, and what his future might be. Sunday comes around after two fantastic games on Saturday. We don't miss a beat at 1 o'clock. Bills go to Jacksonville to play the Jaguars. That one comes down to the freaking wire, too. And the Bills squeak out a 3-point win, 27-24 over the Jaguars. And then the mid-afternoon game, you've got the 49ers going to Philadelphia to play the Eagles, the reigning Super Bowl champs, and they are out. The 49ers come out with a close win in that one, 23-19. So like I saw some people posting on Twitter, clean slate for the Super Bowl this year. No Chiefs, no Eagles. Those were the two that played last year. The only one still in that's been in a Super Bowl recently, obviously, would be the 49ers are there. So from the AFC side, it's going to be very interesting to see who goes to the Super Bowl because the night game on Sunday, the New England Patriots just wiped the floor with the San Diego Los Angeles Chargers 16-3. Justin Herbert, another rough playoff game, multiple turnovers, just ugly, ugly, ugly game for the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh. And then, of course, last night, tight game through about, about 2.5 quarters, if I'm remembering correctly. Texans in Pittsburgh to play the Steelers. I think it was 7-6. Or no, yeah, it was 7-6 for a while. Then it was 13-6. Houston. And then the last quarter and a half, the Texans defense just, first of all, CJ Stroud looked pedestrian. Terrible. I don't know if you can play much worse as a quarterback in a playoff game than what CJ Stroud played last night. It certainly was not the CJ Stroud that whooped the Browns back in 2023. I can tell you guys that much. He looked terrible, but the Texans defense held up their end. They scored the touchdowns they needed, ended up routing the Steelers 30-6. So again, Steelers are out like we said they would be in the first round, like they always are. And the Texans are now moving on. So let's look ahead here real quick, give you guys a preview for divisional round. Saturday, 4:30, the Bills go to Denver to play the Broncos, who had the first round bye because they were the 1 seed. So we'll see who can win that game to move on to the AFC Championship game. And then Saturday night, 8 o'clock p.m., the 49ers up to Seattle, division rival, to play the Seahawks. That's going to be a fun game. That'll be a good one for sure. Sunday, 3 o'clock, Houston goes to New England to play the Patriots. And then 6:30 on Sunday evening, the Rams go to Chicago to play the Bears. So, excellent matchups for divisional round. I'm excited. I think might have been the best wild card weekend we've seen in a while. There were really only 2 blowouts, and even those blowouts weren't blowouts till the end of the game. The Patriots-Chargers game was close for a long time, and the Texans-Steelers game was close for a long time. So all the games were really good. 4 of them were, you had to watch down to almost the last second to see who was going to win. Very tight games. So the divisional round, I am really excited for. All right, let's kick it over here to this Browns head coaching search. Where are we at? Where do we stand? Who have we interviewed? What's the updates? All that kind of stuff. And then we'll start diving into your guys' voicemails. So to recap, and again, I do have actually somebody mentions this in a voicemail. I've got a head coach tracker pinned to the top of to the Dogs podcast page on X. So if you want the current updated tracker in between episodes and things like that, just go to, at the Dogs podcast on X, and it'll be pinned at the top. The Browns have conducted interviews with defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz and offensive coordinator Tommy Rees. They have conducted interviews externally outside the organization with Bengals offensive coordinator Dan Pitcher, Seahawks defensive coordinator Aiden Dirty, Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken, and former Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel. That one happened yesterday. We have interview requests submitted for Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter, Rams pass game coordinator Nate Scheelhaase, Jaguars OC Grant Udinski, and former Ravens head coach, of course, John Harbaugh. And then there's also been reported interest. This is not official. They haven't officially requested interviews, but there's just been reported interest from the Browns in Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady, Rams defensive coordinator Chris Shula, and Packers defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley. So that's where things currently stand for the Cleveland Browns candidates. So let's talk about a few of these. One, well, you know what? I'm not going to talk about John Harbaugh. I've got some voicemails to talk about John Harbaugh. Let's talk about the two guys that I'm excited about. These interview requests came out here this week. Give me a second. Get a drink of coffee. If I open the top, that would help. Okay. First, let's talk about Nate Scheelhaase. Nate Scheelhaase, the pass game coordinator for the Rams. When this one first popped up, I think a lot of people, including myself, were like, who? Because we are so used to seeing interview requests and things for head coaching candidate positions from offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, and former head coaches. It's that's just the mold. That's the way things go. And I've been reading some stuff from, some NFL experts and things like that, talking about how things are really changing in the NFL. And what has become this more or less standard way of doing things when it comes to head coaching searches, you can't do it the way we've been doing it for the last, 10, 15 years. And the way we've been doing it in the NFL, let's just look at offensive coordinators, for instance, right? So you try to find a good, young, upcoming offensive coordinator. Kevin Stefanski, great example for the Browns, right? We hire Kevin Stefanski, this offensive coordinator from Minnesota. He was the OC. He called the offense. He called the plays and everything under Mike Zimmer, all this stuff. And comes to Cleveland. Now he's the head coach in Cleveland, and it's his offense. He calls the plays. Yes, we have an offensive coordinator under him, but he's calling the plays. I see a lot of people on social media talking about how a ton of the candidates the Browns have interviewed do not call plays, whether it's offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. Those coaches are not calling the plays for their unit on those teams. And it's because of this previous era that I believe we're starting to move out of. We have to start moving out of this previous era because there's nowhere else to go. The vast majority of the head coaches right now in the NFL call the plays. Whether they're an offensive head coach or a defensive head coach, they are calling the plays for that side of the ball. So when the Browns are interviewing offensive coordinators, they are the offensive coordinator underneath the head coach who calls the plays, because that head coach used to be an offensive coordinator who called the plays, and now they call the plays for their team. So it's really hard to find an offensive coordinator who calls the plays for the team, because if they have an offensive head coach, he's doing it. Same way on the defensive side of the ball. So teams are starting to look, I've been reading this a lot, starting to look down the organizational ladder a little bit for potential head coaching candidates on those coaching staffs. Nate Scheelhaase is a perfect example of that. So Nate Scheelhaase, if you guys are longtime Buckeyes fans or any team in the Big Ten, really, once I started reading up on him, I'm like, oh, yeah, Nate Scheelhaase. I remember him. Played quarterback for Illinois. I'm trying to find the exact date on that one when he played college career. Yeah, okay, so do you guys, I don't know if you guys remember this, we'll just go back. Do you remember Juice Williams, quarterback at Illinois? I don't know if you remember, this was back in, I'm trying to find, 2010. Okay, so we're going to the Wayback Machine here. 2010, but that's when Scheelhaase became the starting quarterback for Illinois. And he was good at Illinois, very good for them. And he holds their Illinois football record for career total offensive yards, most career passing yards, highest season completion percentage, second most career rushing yards by a quarterback. Like he was a good quarterback for Illinois. Now, let's see. Coaching history. He started off 5 years later. He stuck around at Illinois at football operations in 2015. And then he became the running backs coach the same year in 2015. And then the offensive assistant, 2016 to 2017. Then he went to Iowa State. And that is where things really started to take off for Nate Scheelhaase. Iowa State running backs coach is where he started there in 2018. Moved over to wide receiver coach from 19 to 20. And then he was the run game coordinator, running backs, and wide receiver coach. So his responsibilities and duties expanded significantly from 2021 to 2022. Running game coordinator, running backs, and wide receiver coach. Iowa State in 2023, they moved him to the offensive coordinator and the quarterbacks coach. So he progressed quickly through the ranks at Iowa State. And I'm not going to go into too much history specifics on him, just because if he doesn't end up getting hired, it's all a moot point for this coaching cycle with the Browns. But if he gets hired, then I will do some very extensive episodes and things about Nate Scheelhaase. The general long story short, I guess, is when the authority figures, people in charge at Iowa State, sat down in a room with Nate Scheelhaase, they essentially looked at each other and said, damn, this kid's got it. And they were grooming him to be their heir apparent to Campbell. What was his name? Shoot. I just lost it. Matt Campbell? Matt Campbell, the head coach at Iowa State. And they had, at the time, was getting interviews. If you remember that cycle too, is get interviews with the NFL teams and stuff like that to potentially be a head coach in the NFL. And Nate Scheelhaase was their plan at head coach. Even at that young age, he's only 35, something like that. He's young guy. And back then, they were saying, this is the next guy we want to coach our team. Now, Matt Campbell was still there, and the Rams said, nope, we want this guy in our organization. So they hired Nate Scheelhaase as their offensive assistant and passing game specialist last year in 2024. And then this previous season, 2025, he got promoted to their full-on passing game coordinator. Sean McVay gushes over this guy. They heap so much praise on Nate Scheelhaase. They say essentially what he's so good at doing is going out and seeing all the innovative things that all the other teams in the NFL are doing and finding ways to incorporate bits and pieces from everything into what the Rams do. And if you guys have been following along with the NFL, the Rams had the number one passing offense in the NFL this year. And a lot of that credit goes to Nate Scheelhaase. And again, you got a guy from that Sean McVay tree, highly touted, highly praised. And another thing, and this is why Iowa State was so hell-bent on keeping him around their organization, their program, to be the head coach eventually for them, is because I was reading about him, they said he knows how to put a staff together. He will know how to put people together strategically, like putting pieces in a puzzle together that fit just right. And they said that is a skill that you either have or you don't. And that's why he was getting head coaching looks already way back then. So Nate Scheelhaase, a guy, again, I'll go into more detail about him if we end up hiring him, but I'm very interested. I'm very interested in Nate Scheelhaase. The other guy that I'm just very interested in, and I got to tell you guys, he's probably number one on my list. This episode is sponsored by Kalshi. Browns fans, are you ready to put your money where your predictions are? With Kalshi, America's #1 regulated prediction market, you can legally trade on events that actually matter to you. And the best part is you don't need to predict specific stat lines and compile a 7-leg parlay to win big. With Kalshi, the objective is either yes or no. Will Miami beat Ole Miss? Will Indiana take down Oregon? Which team will win the Super Bowl? And who will be the first pick in the NFL draft? You can put your money on these predictions and more with Kalshi. If you want to try it out, Kalshi is giving $20 to anyone who signs up at kalshi.com/dogs. That's KALSHI.com/dogs, DAWGS, and trade $100. Get away from those disadvantageous sports books and dive into real-world outcomes with real-time odds and real payouts. Head over to kalshi.com/dogs or click the link in the description to get $20 when you trade $100 with Kalshi. That's Kalshi, because why shouldn't you get paid for being right?
Since 1989, Mount Hope Fence has set the standard in outdoor living. From decks and railings to fences and patios, we've got you covered. Our lineup features top brands like TimberTech, Alumagard, Preferred Railing, and Unilock, along with our own premium Duralux vinyl products. For over 30 years, we've partnered with contractors ensuring reliable job site delivery. Discover quality and excellence in all things outdoors with Mount Hope Fence.
This is probably the #1 guy on my Browns head coach wish list. Yes, I know it'd be great to get John Harbaugh and that kind of stuff. John Harbaugh, I believe, is 63, been around for a long time. The NFL has changed and continues to change. And it's not the same league. It doesn't operate the same as it did earlier in John Harbaugh's career whenever he was successful. Very successful, I should say. He's always been successful, but things just reached a tipping point with the players and him allegedly in the locker room and stuff like that over in Baltimore. This is where Blake and I differ. Blake wants an established, been there, done it before type of head coach. Not Mike McCarthy. Absolutely does not like the idea of a guy like Mike McCarthy, but definitely #1 on his list would be John Harbaugh. He likes Mike McDaniel, that type of coach who's been a head coach in the league before and that kind of stuff. Just so you guys understand why I would say Grant Udinski is on the #1 spot on my list is because my mindset is more, let's take a risk here. I do tend to take a little bit more risk with decisions and things. And that's just my personality. And I see unproven, coordinator guy with upside. What's his ceiling? What could he do as an NFL head coach? We don't know. We don't know because he's never been one before. And to me, I see that as let's do it. Let's give that a shot and see what we can do. You can go hire a Mike McDaniel. I think I can pretty much envision what he could probably do with the team just based on what he's done with teams in the past. Now, that's not to say he can't grow and do better in Cleveland than he did in Miami, but we've seen it. We've seen it, and it was okay. It's kind of my takeaway. He's had some very good offenses in Miami, overall team structure and things, and I don't want to ruin what a couple people say in some voicemails because there's some really good points we'll get to. But a guy like Grant Udinski to me is, what could this guy be? And we're going to talk about it here. So he started off his coaching career at Baylor as a graduate assistant, went to the Carolina Panthers in the NFL, coaching assistant. That was in 2020, 2021. Gets hired on the Minnesota Vikings staff in 2022 under Kevin O'Connell as the assistant to the head coach. So he was a Dwight Schrute for Kevin O'Connell, assistant to the head coach and special projects. That was his role when he first got hired in Minnesota. The following season, promoted to assistant quarterbacks coach. The following season, promoted to assistant offensive coordinator and assistant quarterbacks coach. The following season, 2025, hired on as the full-time offensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars. This guy has been highly praised by Kevin O'Connell, by Liam Cohen, the head coach now in Jacksonville. Grant Udinski just got praise heaped on him by Trevor Lawrence after the loss to the Bills on Sunday. You think about some of the quarterback turnarounds that we have seen over these time periods. Everything that you saw in Minnesota, the Sam Darnold season, the resurgence of his career. The year before that, where I forget all, it was like Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins and these guys who really have no business playing quarterback at a high level for any stretch of time in the NFL. We're doing it. They were doing it. The next year, like I said, was Sam Darnold. Then this year, Udinski goes to Jacksonville. And who has a total career turnaround? Looked like Trevor Lawrence was going to be one of these number 1 overall picks that never lived up to the hype. Trevor Lawrence has the best season of his freaking career. And it's no coincidence that it comes as soon as Grant Udinski gets to the organization. Looking at Minnesota, who fell off this year? What position fell off? For the Minnesota Vikings, that quarterback position was terrible. Now, is that all J.J. McCarthy? Does he just suck that bad? Or did it have in part to do with Grant Udinski's departure from the organization? And I have the reason I say that is because I've read some articles from Minnesota beat writers and things like that questioning how much of Kevin O'Connell's quarterback whispering was actually Grant Udinski quarterback whispering alongside him. I really like Grant Udinski, and some of the remarks from Trevor Lawrence, and again, I will do a full extensive history and breakdown so you guys know everything about Grant Udinski if he ends up being the coach for the Browns. But something that Trevor Lawrence said is that he's never had a coach more detail-oriented than Grant Udinski. And coming up with a game plan, coming up with a strategy, and you saw what the Jaguars were able to do this year. What were they, 12-4, 12-5, 13? I forget what the record was, but they were awesome. They were vying for the number 1 seed in the AFC at one point. Damn near beat the Bills. They had a phenomenal season. And yes, Liam Cohen deserves a lot of credit for that as the head coach, but I just can't get off of this Grant Udinski guy. I think that he's got it. I think that he's got it. And the way I'm looking at a guy like Grant Udinski, and he just turned 30 years old, I believe, today or yesterday. No, it was yesterday. So just turned 30 yesterday. Young guy. If he were hired as a head coach in this cycle, he would become the youngest head coach in NFL history. Just turned 30 years old. You know who that title belongs to right now? A little youngster, 30-year-old that a team just took a swing on back in 2017. A guy by the name of Sean McVay with the Los Angeles Rams. They took a swing on a 30-year-old offensive-minded guy. Turned out to be a pretty good move. I'm not saying that Grant Udinski is going to be Sean McVay. But I'm also saying Mike McDaniel is not Sean McVay. Of those two, if those are your two candidates that you're debating between, take the guy with the unknown ceiling, in my opinion. Take the guy that has been highly touted under a couple different coaching staffs now, rose quickly through the ranks in Minnesota. They saw the potential there. I love Kevin O'Connell. You guys know that. He's one of my top coaches in the league. I love Kevin O'Connell. If Kevin O'Connell looks at a guy like Grant Udinski and says, oh yeah, I like him. I'm moving him up in my organization. I'm giving him more responsibilities, all this stuff. I think it's worth the swing. I'm big on Grant Udinski, as you guys can obviously tell. I told you he's number 1 on my list. If I had to give my top 3 for the Browns, I know, and I know this is going to go against what a lot of people think. So don't be afraid to tear me apart in the comments, please. I get it. I know this is not going to be the consensus by any stretch. Number 1 is Grant Udinski. That's who I want the Browns to hire. I want to try it. Give it a try. What do we have to lose? Give it a try. Let's see. Let's see what he can do. I really like him. Number 2, legit for me, Nate Scheelhaase. Again, same mindset. Get that young, unproven guy who's, again, if you think that Udinski or Scheelhaase is going to get a head coaching job in the next coaching cycle after the 2026 season, just hire him now. Just hire him now. What good does it do you to hire Mike McDaniel, a retread head coach, let's just call it what it is, now, and then say the Browns, they have a so-so 2026 season, and it's one of those situations where the next draft cycle, obviously we're like, well, we can't just fire him after 1 year. We got to continue to see how this can roll into year 2 with Mike McDaniel. The hot names on the market are going to be Nate Scheelhaase and Grant Udinski, and they're going to get hired by other organizations, and they're going to, boom, take their team to the playoff that first year. That's going to happen. It's what's going to happen because we decided we're not ready for that young guy right now. Let's just take a safer option with a guy who's been a head coach before, and then we'll middle around until we have to fire him and hope that a Grant Udinski or a Nate Scheelhaase is on the market the next time we do this crap. That's where I'm at. I think that's just what I think. I'm in on Udinski and Scheelhaase. And then if I had to give like my third option, obviously I need John Harbaugh on my list. I think it's still if you can get him, I still think it's a good way to, I'm not saying he's going to take us to the promised land. He's an older coach. He probably doesn't have a ton of time left as far as his coaching career is concerned. But to get the organization turned around to a point where a young guy could come in 5, 6, 7 years and take over, if Harbaugh were to retire or something, I think he could get us in a good position for that next wave of coaching. But I'm more interested in the next wave of coaching now. Give me the young, innovative, offensive, brilliant minds, and let's see what can happen. Because if you guys remember, that was Kevin Stefanski. Young, offensive mind, comes in here, first season, playoffs. First season, playoffs. The downfall for Kevin Stefanski was poor in-game management, questionable decision-making at times with the play calls in, fourth and short situations and things like that, and his inability to adapt over time. As the NFL defenses caught on to what he liked to do, what his tendencies were, what his play calls were, all this kind of stuff, he didn't change it up. He didn't grow and evolve along with that. There were no new wrinkles. There was nothing. The game planning wasn't there. So that's why you saw we started off great, and then it just kind of settled down and plateaued where it ended, and that kind of thing. But that's, in my opinion, what you have to try to shoot for. I'm not saying you want to get Kevin Stefanski because you just fired. I'm saying you want that type of opportunity again where you can get that young guy. But this time, I'm hoping the young guy they hire, the young offensive mind, continues to adapt and evolve his scheme, his offense, and his game planning over the course of his career, not just stay stuck in his ways. I feel like Kevin was just too stubborn. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but just too egotistical for, any sort of prolonged success in the NFL. It's why I question how he'll be able to fare in his next job. But we'll see, because he'll get hired somewhere this year, and we'll get to see right off the bat. But Grant Udinski, Nate Scheelhaase, sign me up. Let's do this. I am all on board with that type of thing. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Am I crazy? Are we done trying the up-and-coming, young, offensive-minded, genius type thing, or what? So let me know what you guys think. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back hitting up your voicemails. This episode is sponsored by ISSA. Browns fans, if you're into health and fitness, have you ever wondered how you could maybe turn those hobbies and your passion into an actual career? If that sounds interesting to you, then ISSA has the opportunity you've been looking for. ISSA is the International Sports Science Association, and they can help you become a certified personal trainer in as little as 3 months. And right now you can get $100 off your certification when you sign up through our link, joinissa.com/dogs, DAWGS. Now, certifications are 100% online, self-study, and self-paced. You can study anywhere from your phone, tablet, or computer. And the final exam is open note, open book, aka piece of cake. Except you fitness nuts probably don't eat a ton of cake, so let's just call it a piece of delicious protein bar. And ISSA has the #1 job guarantee in the industry. If you get certified and sign up to be a certified trainer with ISSA, you have a job guarantee or your money back. ISSA has over 10,000 gym partners that have over 73,000 open jobs for trainers right now. And you don't need a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree. You just need your certification to qualify for these jobs. So what are you waiting for? With certification this simple, there's no excuse not to pursue your passion and become a certified personal trainer today. Get $100 off your certification at joinissa.com/dogs. You've wanted to make a change long enough. Now it's time to do something about it. That's joinissa.com/dogs for $100 off your personal trainer certification. All right, welcome back. First voicemail on the docket today. Aiden, you made it, buddy. You made it on the show. Let's hear what Aiden has to say.
Hey guys, this is Aiden from Indiana, and this is my first time sending in a voicemail to the Dogs podcast. I've been listening for a while. Obviously, being a huge Browns fan, I feel like you kind of get either one side of the spectrum with the Browns. It's either like, oh, we're a dog shit franchise who's never going to win, which seems to be factual the past 20 years. But a lot of people also say that it looks like we don't have any room for success in the future, and I think that that's completely false. I think that this team is set up for success as it sits right now. Of course, we're going to get a new head coach, and I think that whatever coach we get is going to be better than Stefanski. I was not a huge Stefanski fan. Of course, you look at the stats. Overall, he was a loser. Like I feel like a lot of people see the 2-time coach of the year. He brought stability to the franchise, and of course, he was instrumental in the playoff run that we had, but at the same time, he was a loser. And I think that these past few years have been evident of that, and it was time for a coaching change. But with the amount of draft picks we have this year, and whenever Deshaun Watson gets off the books, I think that this team is definitely set up for success in the future, and I can't wait to see it. I hope this episode goes well. I hope that I can hear myself in the next episode. So have a good night, guys.
Well, there you go, Aiden. You got to hear yourself on the episode. I hope you listened. You better have listened to this one, buddy. I agree with you, man. I do think that the Browns are set up for success on some fronts. Now, obviously, we have a great defense. We've got our defensive core is locked in. They're very good. Who's coaching that defense next year? We'll see. We'll see. Is it Jim Schwartz? Is it another defensive coordinator that comes in? Who's the head coach? Who's the quarterback? I think is a big thing. Kevin Stefanski, I just talked about him, but I'll just hit on it again. Yeah, overall, loser. I'm sorry. It's just you won 8 games in 2 years. You're a loser, but that's not all Kevin Stefanski's fault. Andrew Berry is also a loser. I think this plays to some fan speculation, and I don't disagree with it, that Kevin Stefanski's kind of a pushover. I've seen fans in the comments saying the Browns need to make sure they hire a coach with some cojones. I agree because listen, if you're an offensive-minded head coach, and that's your specialty is offense, how in the did you let your general manager do what he just did to you on the offensive side of the ball? How did you let that happen? This team is supposed to be, one mind, we make all our decisions together, yada, yada, yada. Kevin, you sat in the meetings and said, it's Isaiah Bond and Gage Larvidan. That's fine. That's fine to have. Those can be 2 of our top receivers. Sure. What? Oh, yeah, the only 2 quarterbacks I want on my roster are rookies, late-round rookies. What? Give me somebody in here who's got a little bit of bark and bite to him. And I'm not saying you got to butt heads with AB. I'm saying you got to hold that dude in check. And I'm sure AB holds you in check as the head coach. Well, make sure he's not screwing you with his offensive personnel being the worst in the NFL. ridiculous. Ridiculous. I do give Kevin Stefanski some blame for that. I do. Because again, you cannot be an offensive-minded guy. That cannot be your specialization, your side of the ball that you focus on. And you allow your general manager to do that to you. I wouldn't. And I want somebody in here who won't. So, Aiden, thank you very much for the voicemail. Hope to hear from you again. I love it when the first time callers send in their voicemail and they're so happy. Like, hey, I'm finally sending in a voicemail to the show. I want to get on there. That's cool. That makes me smile. It's good stuff. So, appreciate you, Aiden. Next one here. Let's hear from our pal Cooper.
Hey guys, it's Cooper Belvin again here in El Paso, Texas. I just want to let you all know you guys are correct. I am related to Adam. I heard we are looking for a new coach. If we could have one, I would take the best option, which I think is John Harbaugh. He could bring us a new culture. He grew up a Browns fan, and he can get us to a Super Bowl maybe.
Cooper, my man, thank you for the voicemail. Love hearing from the youngsters out there. I'm willing to bet that John Harbaugh won his Super Bowl in Baltimore before you were born, buddy. I bet you. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But yeah, John Harbaugh obviously would be at the top of, 95% of Browns fans' wish list, maybe 98. I don't know. I don't know how many people are like me and are really vying for the younger, unproven coordinator or staffer, I guess, in Nate Scheelhaase's case. I don't know how many people are like me in that regard. Again, not saying I don't want John Harbaugh. If the Browns came out and announced, hey, we're hiring John Harbaugh, he's agreed to come here, I'd be ecstatic. I'd be excited. Like, let's do this. I would be really excited. I just feel like, again, while there's a ton of upside with John Harbaugh, I do think that there is a limitation to that upside at this point in his career, and at this point, we're in the evolution of the NFL. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right in any stretch. Trust me, it's just the way I feel. Let me know what you guys think. But they came out the other day and said that again, Harbaugh has been fielding calls. He's been doing some exploratory calls with all the teams that want to have formal interviews with him, and I don't believe they've really announced yet which teams he's elected to do a formal interview with. The Atlanta, it was weird the other day on social media because the Atlanta Falcons come out, their social media team, and they post that we've officially concluded our interview with John Harbaugh for a head coaching position. It's like, oh wow, okay, so he interviewed with the Falcons, and then reports come out after that John Harbaugh hasn't interviewed with any teams beyond the exploratory phone calls to each team. And then it comes out that he had lunch or dinner or something over the weekend with, I think it's John Mara, the owner of, or the president, whatever it is, of the New York Giants. So I don't know. I don't really know exactly what's going on with the John Harbaugh situation. The overall sentiment seems to be he's really dialed into the Giants or the Falcons, and then there's a little bit more also with the Titans. Those seem to be the top 2 or 3 teams right now with the odds-on favorite to land John Harbaugh. I know he grew up a Browns fan, but when you're comparing the state of our organization and our roster to those guys, yes, we have a better defense than all 3 of those teams. The Falcons do have a good defense, though. It's not the Browns, but it's still a good defense. They've also got 2 quarterbacks on that roster that, a coach like Harbaugh probably feels like I can win with those. I can win with Kirk Cousins or Michael Penix when he gets back from injury. They got Bijan Robinson. They got Drake London. They could bring back Kyle Pitts. They've got good pieces on the offensive side of the ball. You look at the Titans. They've got all the cap space in the world. They've got great draft capital. They've got a young quarterback in Cam Ward. There are things there to work with. It's not quite as roster rich as the Browns, like on the defensive side of the ball, but there's still Jeffrey Simmons. There's still some guys on that defense. And then the Giants, to me, would probably be the ideal situation if you believe in Jackson Dart, because you got Jackson Dart already in place. He's got his first year experience under his belt. He's ready to continue to grow and evolve. You've got good running backs there. You've got good receiver in Malik Neighbors. Maybe they bring back Wan'Dale Robinson. They've got a high pick. They could take a Carnell Tate or a Jordan Tyson type guy to bring in with Malik Neighbors. You got good like tight ends there, good young offensive line pieces, and you got a good young defense. That defensive line for the Giants, you can work with that. Yep, you can work with that. So I do think those landing spot destinations are a little better, a little more attractive than the Browns. Cooper, thanks. Let's hear what your dad has to say, man.
Gentlemen, it is Adam from El Paso, Texas, aka Cooper's dad. I just want to call in because I just watched a video that I thought was actually pretty impressive. The coach for the Jaguars, his post-game interview after the Buffalo loss. And, you know, there's a reporter in the Jacksonville press room that, you know, she basically goes on to say, congratulations on a great season, coach, and hold your head up high. And you've had the most wonderful season and you're the one. And, you know, I just sit there and I think to myself, you know, when will the day come that a Cleveland reporter, Tony Grossi, Mary Kay, any of those guys look at one of our coaches and actually compliment them on the job they're doing rather than trying to create internal discourse within our organization? I've also, heard on Johnny Manziel's podcast, he's mentioned these individuals and how just hectic the press runs amok within our organization. And, it's my personal opinion that, I don't mind scrutiny, especially when a job's not being done well. However, the problems that our reporters create within our organization, if I was Jimmy Haslam, I'd ban these people from being in the press room and creating that dysfunction within the organization. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts about the Cleveland media, the mainstream Cleveland media. Not great, man. Not great. To be honest with you, the mainstream Cleveland media is why this podcast exists in the first place, because I was listening at my previous job in my former life. I would listen to ESPN Cleveland every morning while I was at work. And first of all, thank you. Hat tip, shout out Aaron Goldhammer. You single-handedly are one of the key reasons why this podcast exists today, because I could not stand listening to that stupid buffoon talk every single day. First of all, his voice. Oh, choke me. Make me puke, Aaron. You suck. A Broncos fan, a Denver Broncos fan in here belittling Ohio State, constantly just talking down the Buckeyes every chance he gets. Ha, ha, ha. He relishes when they lose. You know your audience, you moron. He has no reason to be here. There's no reason for Aaron Goldhammer to be one of the top voices on ESPN Cleveland. It's not like he's just a lower rung guy that gets on there, from time to time, or he's got a non-primetime show spot. He's one of the main people on that freaking network. So I was done. I was done listening to him, done listening to Tony Grossi. We got blocked on Twitter by Tony Grossi a long time ago because of how much crap we talked about Tony Grossi. So we called him out a bunch. He couldn't take it. He blocked us. I, at this moment, won't share the specific details, but I did get into it with another Cleveland media member maybe 2 weeks ago or so on Twitter in a DM back and forth where this person was, well, let's just say not very nice to our podcast about something that we reported on, them saying, which was interesting because they were accusing us of making up what they said. And then I shot back the quote and said, but you said this. This is actually what you said. I watched the video clip. This is what you said. Never got a response back after that because I think they knew I was correct. They just didn't like how it made them look. Anyway, Cleveland media sucks. That's why you guys are here. That's why you're listening to this podcast. And that's why we do it. That's why we do it. We want to give you a fan perspective on all this stuff. And that's why the podcast has to stay independent. We can't answer to anybody. I don't want to be answering to anybody. I don't want to be held responsible for anything I say because it inflicts upon the interests of any other, entity. Our thoughts are our thoughts, and we're going to tell you, like we always have, what we really think. So, Adam, I appreciate the voicemail. I appreciate you getting your son involved. It's awesome hearing from your kid. That is really, really cool. All right, let's see. I guess I've got two voicemails left, and these are both from Zach, a.k.a. Fake Burns. So let's go ahead and hit the first one from him.
What is up? It is Zach, aka Fake Burns again. I just wanted to start off by saying how much I appreciate the social media updates, Josh, talking about the head coaching search. It's really helpful to see who we've interviewed, who we want to interview, who we have one scheduled with, simply who we've had reported interest with. It's super nice, especially with this offseason already being so hectic with so many head coaching opening positions around the league and just there being a lot of options because of that. So I really appreciate those. And with that being said, too, with the Cleveland Browns official social medias, I think it's funny. And I'm sorry if you're one of those Cleveland Browns fans to people listening to this right now, but I think it's funny, like whenever we interview anybody else, people in the comments are all mad that it's not John Harbaugh. And they're like, I swear this team just wants to lose. And it's like, no, we have to interview more people than just John Harbaugh. But we got to explore our options. And I respect that. I'm trusting the process here. But obviously, if Harbaugh does want to come here, with him being a Cleveland Browns fan growing up, like you guys said, I would love that. I would love if Green Bay fires their coach, we get him, LaFleur. Not a big fan of former Miami McDaniels. I don't know. I've never been a huge fan of him. I know he used to be our receivers coach, but I don't know. I just never felt like he was serious. Like I know people loved his, like when they were good a couple years ago and he was messing around with the players and stuff, like that was great. But to me, he just seemed like a kid out there, you know, like there was always team meetings, like player only meetings against him. I don't know, but go Browns. Hoo hoo.
All right, Zach, first of all, well, you're welcome for the head coach tracker updates. I mentioned that already on the show. Go to the Dogs Podcast or at the Dogs Podcast on X. It's pinned up there at the top of the page. Browns fans getting mad in the official team posts about who they're interviewing and all that kind of stuff. This is not, again, I say this stuff all the time and I hope nobody ever takes offense. I am not knocking Browns fans for this. If you're listening to this podcast right now, you're not one of these people, most likely. There's a lot of, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I can't stress that enough, but there's a lot of casual fans out there. There's a lot of, I'm a Browns fan, I see a post on Twitter, I don't really follow the team that closely because I'm busy, because I got a job, I got a family, I got all this stuff going on. I can't follow the Browns 24/7. I totally get it. And they don't know all the names in this cycle. They haven't done the research on who the hell is Grant Udinski. I get it. But you know who John Harbaugh is. So anytime you see a name that you don't know who the hell they are, and it's not John Harbaugh, it's not a name that you know, and really in this cycle, who's the one name out there that everybody's like, well, that's a great coach? It's John Harbaugh. So I understand where that is coming from just because of and I don't want to call it a lack of knowledge of these other coaches. It's more of a just lack of time to do the research. You're busy. You got other stuff going on. And that's why this podcast, again, I like to just try to bring you guys the information so you don't have to go out there and research it yourself. You can just listen. I mean, by all means, let me drop a name like Grant Udinski and tell you what I think about him. Go out and do your own research, though. I do encourage that. Like, don't just take my word for it. Go look into him yourself and see what you think. But for the people that just want to hear what I have to say or the information about these guys, here you go. Here it is. I'm happy to provide it. Now, you mentioned one thing there, Zach, about Matt LaFleur potentially getting fired by the Green Bay Packers, and I'm seeing a lot of that. Honestly, the Adam Schefter reports and things like that after the Packers lost the other night in Chicago have really been more of the LaFleur and the Packers are trying to work out an extension. Because he's on the last year, going into the last year of his deal, of his contract, and they're trying to work out an extension to keep him in-house, for the foreseeable future, which again, that doesn't mean anything as far as his long-term future. Because again, Kevin Stefanski got an extension before the 2024 season. He's fired now. We have no idea what that extension ever was. We never got details on it, whatever, but that's just the way it is. So it doesn't really mean that he's going to be locked in forever, but LaFleur, I was looking it up the other day, his record without Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, something like 29-21-1. It's not great. It's not great. And just hasn't been able to get it done in the playoffs. That's the kind of coach that I don't know if I want to retread that. Again, I'm not saying the Browns are some superior team that can just turn their nose up at some of these more accomplished head coaches, but I feel like there might be a cap. Like there might be a limitation to what Matt LaFleur can actually get out of a roster. I don't know. If you follow Packers fans online or go read anything they say, they're just not a big fan of him. They really haven't been. It's kind of like the Tomlin situation in Pittsburgh. Okay, you're a good coach, but you're not great. You're not getting us where we want to go, where we expect this organization to be. And then to speak to Mike McDaniel, it's why, while I still think he probably is, like if I had to bet on one of these coaches getting hired by the Browns, it probably would be at this moment Mike McDaniel. I don't really know if I want him. And it does speak to that. If you just got fired by an organization, by a team where the players were having player-only meetings this year, just this past year, I don't know if I want that coming into Cleveland, taking over my team that's already kind of at sorts in certain areas. And it's fragile. It is fragile here in Cleveland. And while it was time for Kevin Stefanski to go, he did do a lot of good things while he was here. Team building overall was a good strength of his. He was able to get the team together. There leaks of locker room turmoil and player-only meetings and things like that under Kevin Stefanski. They were still fighting hard in a lost season under a lame duck coach that everybody assumed was going to get fired. The last 2 games of the season, we won against division rivals in games that we didn't need to win. We had no business winning. But we did. We won those games. The players were still playing and still fighting. They had not phoned it in yet. And I just don't know. And again, I get that things did turn around under Mike McDaniel here at the back end of the year for the Dolphins, and they went on a little bit of a hot streak and started to win some games. I don't remember who their opponents were, what the situations were, anything like that. I just don't know how Mike McDaniel is going to... The Cleveland media, I don't know, guys. I don't know. I'm not big on it. I like him as an offensive mind. I don't know if I like him as my head coach. So there's that. Now, Zach did send in a second voicemail with some other head coaching pointers that I want to get to. So here's that.
One more quick thing also. Sorry, I know 2 voicemails in a row, taking up a lot of time on the show. But one person I have not seen, and I don't expect to see him because obviously he's on the 49ers and they have a real shot at the Super Bowl. But Robert Saleh is someone that I've always kind of been interested in. To be honest, I kind of want to see a defensive-minded head coach come in here with our defense being good and then bring in a good OC. But Robert Saleh is someone that I'm kind of high on. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think he had a really bad situation with the Jets. Not that our situation is good, but I think it's better. And our defense would set him up nicely to where he can kind of give the reins to a good OC, kind of like what you guys were saying. His interview just has to be, he's bringing in a good OC. So for me, Harbaugh would be great. LaFleur would be great. And I think Robert Saleh would be a really good one, to be honest. But yep, those are my thoughts on the head coaching position. It'll probably change, especially the more research I do myself. And the more research you do, Josh, the kind of give me some information. But I guess also a question too. It's been a while, 2018 since we hired a coach again. Do we think we're going to hire a new coach before the Super Bowl, or do we think it'll be a little bit later than that? Just out of curiosity. But yeah, sorry, I know 2 voicemails. I took up about 3 minutes of the show today. My fault. Go Browns. Hoo hoo.
All right, Zach, to speak to that last question, if you go back to 2020, the Browns officially hired Kevin Stefanski on January 13th, 2020, which is today. All right, so happy Kevin Stefanski Day. 6 years later, or 6 years ago today is when we hired Kevin Stefanski. Now, this notes that this league season was a week shorter back then. So with that in mind, it could be within the next week they hire somebody. I don't think that's going to happen. I think this head coaching search is going to be extended a lot further out. I do think they hire somebody before the Super Bowl. There are benefits, obviously, to getting your coach in here earlier so that way you can start your staff building and get everything rolling, because the offseason goes quick and the upcoming season rolls around very fast in the NFL. So that's just a little timetable on when the Browns hired their last coach. I do think it will be before the Super Bowl. Robert Saleh. I'm not as big on Robert Saleh as you are. And not just you. There's a lot of other people out there that like him as a head coach. And I think he's interviewing for the Ravens head coaching job. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention earlier, the Ravens requested an interview with Jim Schwartz for their head coaching position. So just keep that in mind as well. I'm just not big on defensive coordinator coming in here to be the head coach. I know I've said in the past that I think this job would be more attractive to a defensive coordinator, given the state of our defensive side of the ball and everything like that, but it doesn't mean that's my preference. So I found this chart, and this is just 2017 to 2023. So it's not the last 2 seasons, but it is the 6 or 7 years before that. So 2017 to 2023, 63% of the head coach hires in the NFL were offensive coordinators. 28% were defensive coordinators and 9% were other. So it would be like a Nate Scheelhaase situation. Offensive guy, but he wasn't technically the offensive coordinator type situation. So if you go back 2017 to 2023, here are the defensive head coaches hired, and how did things go for these guys? Vance Joseph, no. Sean McDermott, yes. That worked out very well. Mike Vrabel, this is with Tennessee now. So the answer there is no. But obviously things are working out real well for Mike Vrabel right now. I shouldn't say things didn't work out in Tennessee. They made the playoffs multiple years in a row and all that kind of stuff. It just wasn't able to get them over the hump. But I really like what he's doing with the Patriots this year. Steve Wilkes, no. Matt Patricia, no. Vic Fangio, no. Brian Flores, no. Ron Rivera, it worked out okay whenever he was in Carolina, but then in Washington, not really. Robert Saleh in New York, no, did not work. Brandon Staley in Los Angeles, no. Dennis Allen, no. Lovie Smith, no. Matt Eberflus, no. So again, a smaller percentage of the pool, of the head coaching pool, were the defensive guys, but only a couple of them have really had success. Obviously, there's more opportunity for success on the offensive side of the ball, but you see the names there, and these are guys that are still getting thrown around for head coaching jobs, even if it didn't work out the first time. I mean, here's, of course, Kyle Shanahan, yes. Doug Marrone, no. Sean McVay, yes. Anthony Lynn, no. Frank Reich, yes, for a little bit, but then no. John Gruden, no. Matt Nagy, no. Pat Shurmur, no. Cliff Kingsbury, didn't work the first time, worked out really well as an OC in Washington. Now he's up for head coaching jobs again in this cycle. Zach Taylor, somehow the only head coach left standing after this year in the AFC North, assuming something happens here with Mike Tomlin. Zach Taylor, really? Cincinnati? I know Cincinnati fans are not happy about that. Adam Gase, no. Matt LaFleur, yes. Freddie Kitchens, no. Bruce Arians is a good coach. Kevin Stefanski, yes. Mike McCarthy, meh. Matt Rule, no. Nick Sirianni, yes. Some of these names I don't even recognize because they were probably only coaches for like a year. But obviously Mike McDaniel, Doug Peterson, Kevin O'Connell, yes. Josh McDaniels, no. Brian Daboll, somewhat. Nathaniel Hackett, hell no. I guess what this chart shows me too is it's really hard to be a head coach in the NFL. Really hard to be a head coach and sustain success. But there's a lot of names on this list that were retread guys. I mean, just doesn't always work out that well. So for me, that's why I go back. Give me Udinski. Give me Scheelhaase. Give me one of these young, offensive, bright minds that have just absolutely risen through their organization. You just can't hold them down. You got to keep moving them up and giving them new responsibilities. Because if you don't, they're going to leave for new opportunities. These young, ambitious, hungry guys that aren't set in their ways, that are still innovating and still working. That's what I'm interested in. So let me know what you guys think about the Browns head coaching search. Who should we hire? Who do you want to hire? Do you think we'll get the interview with John Harbaugh? All that kind of stuff. Again, by the time you're listening to this, there could be 2 or 3 more names added to the head coaching tracker. I don't know. We're adding names every day. I'm updating the tracker every day. So go to X. At the top of our profile, it's pinned, the head coaching tracker at the Dogs Podcast. Go to jointhedogs.com if you want to be part of the official Dog Pack community. Get in there, hang out with all the diehard Browns fans. If you love the interaction that we have on the show with people in the chat during the live shows or the voicemails that get called in here, a lot of these people are in the Dog Pack. And if you're not, you should be. You should be. You guys should go check it out. It's a great place to be. It's a ton of fun. And again, the lowest tier to get in there is $5 a month. I say it all the time. It's like you're donating 1 cup of coffee each month. That's it. Just 1 cup each month to the show. but collectively, you guys keep this thing running and growing to what it continues to be. I just never would have imagined we'd grow into what we have become as a community, as a podcast, as a platform, and it's all thanks to you guys. We appreciate everybody's support so much. So thank you guys. Hope you are having a great week. We'll be back with another episode at some point later this week. Like I said, not sure when we're going to do our live show on YouTube with Blake, and hopefully Justin can get in there as well, but we will let you guys know. And until I see you guys in the next episode, let's go Browns. Keep interviewing coaches, expand your search, find the right guy, and let's kick off the 2026 season the right way with some optimism, and let's get out of this losing funk that we've been in these last 2 seasons under Kevin Stefanski. It's time for a new era of Cleveland Browns football, and we're going to be here to detail it all with you guys. Appreciate you. Love you. Have a great week. Let's go Browns.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dogs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at the Dogs Podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at thedogspodcast.com.
This episode is sponsored by Kalshi. Browns fans, are you ready to put your money where your predictions are? With Kalshi, America's #1 regulated prediction market, you can legally trade on events that actually matter to you. And the best part is you don't need to predict specific stat lines and compile a 7-leg parlay to win big. With Kalshi, the objective is either yes or no. Will Miami beat Ole Miss? Will Indiana take down Oregon? Which team will win the Super Bowl? And who will be the first pick in the NFL draft? You can put your money on these predictions and more with Kalshi. If you want to try it out, Kalshi is giving $20 to anyone who signs up at kalshi.com/dogs. That's KALSHI.com/dogs, DAWGS, and trade $100. Get away from those disadvantageous sports books and dive into real-world outcomes with real-time odds and real payouts. Head over to kalshi.com/dogs or click the link in the description to get $20 when you trade $100 with Kalshi. That's Kalshi, because why shouldn't you get paid for being right?